These days, a very commonly used term. It's a buzzword for so many organizations, and it seems to mean different things to different people depending on where you're located. Does sustainability mean the same in Europe, for instance, as it means for those of us living in the emerging economies? Does sustainability in the extractive industry mean the same with sustainability in the pharmaceutical business, for instance? Please let me invite Dr. Obi Ezekwesili to give her keynote address. Thank you so much.
Anytime we talk about the extractive industries, the very first thing that crosses your mind is the impact of the extractive industries on the citizens. And so any conversation about the extractive industries and the issues of sustainability of the sustainability issues in the extractive industries immediately takes us to a conversation on the development impact of the extractive industries. The context for such a conversation is very clear. It is that academic evidence has shown that natural resources endowment is a double-edged sword. On the one end of the sword, you have the opportunities that it accords a nation and a people. The revenue streams from the sector, the mega projects that happen as a result of the sector, some of the jobs that may be connected to the sector, the possible spillover impact on the rest of the economy. Those are all the good things. But the other end of the sword is much more dangerous and lethal. And unfortunately, the one that is most prevalent in many resources-rich economies. And those are the issues that are, that's the moderator. Our moderator was talking about. So you're talking about the adverse impact issues. A lot of them being that the rents from the sector do not, as they say in Nigeria, reach the ground. So there's a disconnect between massive revenue from the sector and the economic benefit to those in the communities in which the endowments reside. And so that whole conversation about how much of this sector, how much of the economic benefits of the sector is captured by the citizens in the local communities from where they are derived. The issue of the environmental devastation associated with the sector and the management of it in a way that it does not obstruct even the living, healthy conditions of the society within which the rents are captured. The issue of the lack of social dimension to the development of the sector, and therefore the fact that the sector can inherently, in of itself, upstage any possibilities of alternative points of development. And so the Dutch disease syndrome says that citizens or the nation at large becomes comfortable with the rent coming from this endowment, that it reduces everybody to a narrow trajectory of what economic development, economic growth and development can be. The issues of intergenerational equity, meaning that you capture all the rent from an endowment that is non-renewable. It soon depletes. Doesn't matter what you do about it. There are some of the mining regions where there's no more platinum, there's no more gold. It doesn't matter how you dream about it, it's gone. So it's finite resources that has an expiration date. This is non-renewable capital. It doesn't last forever. And so the intergenerational equity issues, as part of that other end of the sword, is what says to you, why should this particular generation derive all the benefits and then have not positioned the economy on the path where the next generation will see the benefits of having had, of the country having been endowed with such commodity, and yet, but they will suffer the consequences of the poor choices and decisions that were made for them. Finally, on the part of the citizens, actions. The citizens need to understand that in a democracy, active citizenship will convert agencies into institutions. Simply having NEITI agency is not enough. It is not yet an institution. It is simply an agency. Agencies become institutions when citizens put them under constant scrutiny and confer a legitimacy upon them. It is the radical restructure of the components and the priorities of public expenditure that will support the emergence of a truly sustainable oil, gas, mining sector in this nation. To the extent that massive billions earned from oil and very much lesser degree mineral resources do not yet impact the everyday lives of citizens in the poor category. To that extent is the journey to sustainability and to intergenerational equity still a distant, many thousands of miles away. But the good thing is, if you chose to take the first right step today, we might start off onto a great journey of destiny. Thank you very much.
Could you tell us why the theme of this conference? Why policy? Why affirmative action? Why sustained growth? What is this all about? How do we understand what this means?
As some of you may know, this is the second annual conference that we're having on the extractive industries. We had the first one last year in partnership with the Deputy High Commission of Canada, and as a result of the importance of the extractive industries to Nigeria, we felt that, and obviously as a result of the discussions that we had on the day, we knew that this was something that needed to be repeated. It wasn't meant to be a one-off event. And as a result of that event, we had a post-event communique that highlighted that key issues, the key issues in the extractive industries had to do with policy and transparency. And we decided that this year's topic would be on policy issues and how to empower people to be a part of the process of policy development. As Dr. Ezekwesili had mentioned initially, the fact that these industries are opaque by nature has led to the exclusion of people. So this is what informed the need, the part of the something that talks about affirmative action. And then again, the fact that growth is not necessarily favorable when it's not development, of course, informed the part that's mentioned sustained growth. So we're hoping that the different stakeholders here can contribute extensively to sustainable development in this area.
What is the role of media, in ensuring that the citizen or the citizenry are well educated?
Yes, the media has a very critical role to play. The Nigerian media is hampered in so many ways. When we want to pursue a story, we get stymied. We go only so far, and then we're told it's sub judice, meaning it's at a point where it's illegal to pursue. That's an old-fashioned, obsolete clause in British law. I don't know whether it still works. It's still active in England, but it's surprising that it continues here in Nigeria. That's
It's
a
government
major
that comes to us to say this
Right.
is subject.
Okay, take any issue that comes up. Usually issues involving revenue or misuse of funds. Let's just take that as an example. It splashes in the newspapers and airwaves for about 2 weeks. Then it disappears. You don't hear of it anymore. Why? Because partly there's lack of courage on the part of the press. I mean, we can say that. There's lack of persistence. And then there's legal obstructions that are put in the way of investigation.
What can we do to circumvent this horrible situation?
Thank you for that. If I have a quick comment on the last speaker's comments on what sub judice in terms of, to my understanding, is when there's something before the court, and we're not allowed to really go into details of the particular facts of the case. It's a way of protecting the integrity of the judiciary. But I don't think if that's unless that matter is actually before the court, that should not be a problem for any news reporter. But going further to talk about the issues we're here for on accountability, transparency, in my experience, and I've done quite a bit of work in this area, I find that reporting obligations are not taken very seriously in Nigeria. NITIS, of course, is an exception, and they are doing a good job. But I still have a bit of a problem with it, because you can tell us we've had now 2 or 3 NITI reports, but what is the exact outcome? Beyond the reports, what's next?
NITI just said $10.9 billion is lost to oil theft. Yeah, we know the National Assembly will not do anything. Yeah, so following what Dr. Ayode just said, what can we do?
The EITI is about mobilization of the people to begin to take part in decision-making processes. And that's why you are seated on the same table with the government and the companies. So you have an opportunity to interject, to make your voice heard, to make your opinions, to state them right from the planning stage. You don't have to wait until the outcome comes and it's not favorable.
Mr. Ene, in all of these, reports that we're hearing, we hear that up to 500,000, barrels per day is being lost, to oil theft, and quite a significant proportion of this is not just by the vendors who go to break the pipelines and cut away these products. Some of it is happening, at the flow heads level, the flow stations, the wellheads, and NNPC recently came out to say that it's not even at the export terminals, but it's within, the operations of the majors and the independents that, these things are happening. What's your take on that?
It depends on what side of the table you're sitting on. And I think to a large extent, we tend to look at, oil companies, oil service companies have all been demonized and in this regard. the fact is, it's an economic system. It's a production system. And I underline the word system. And the problem is systemic. In other words, it's just a reflection of the way things are set up. Now, chances are that you have shrinkage anyway if you produce anything down the pipeline. The result is that the leakages are going to be in that system if the system is not effectively owned by all the stakeholders in the process. That I think is a greater challenge than the actual barrel numbers, counting the barrel numbers, on whose side, who's responsible for it. And that's again a reflection of the scenario I painted, which is unless we see it from the same side of the table, this problem is not going to disappear.